Gothic sculpture was closely tied to architecture since it was used primarily to decorate the exteriors of cathedrals and other religious buildings. The earliest Gothic sculpture were stone figures of saints and the Holy Family used to decorate the doorways or portals of the cathedrals in France and elsewhere. Nicola Pisano and his son Giovanni Pisano were Italian sculptors during the Gothic age who developed a classical influence style of sculpture known as Proto-Renaissance. His most famous work is the pulpit of the Pisa Baptistery, which is a masterful synthesis of the French Gothic style and classical style. Made with white Carrara marble, the pulpit depicts the scenes from the life of Jesus Christ in a classical style.
The pulpit of the Baptistery of Pisa finished in 1260. This pulpit represents a synthesis of the French Gothic style with the classical style of ancient Rome. The structure takes the shape of a hexagon resting on top of 7 columns, 6 of which form a ring around its outer portion, while one stands in the center. The pulpit of the Siena Cathedral was sculpted by Nicola Pisano and his assistants, his son Giovanni Pisano, Arnolfo di Cambeo, and Lapo di Riboto, between the fall of 1265 and the fall of 1268. This octagonal pulpit, carved in Carrara marble, with 7 narrative panels and 9 decorative columns, represent Nicola Pisano's exceptional talent for integrating classical themes into Christian traditions, reason why Nicola and the Siena pulpit are considered as the forerunners of the classical revival that promoted the appearance of the Italian Renaissance. The original contract that Nicola Pisano signed to begin works on the pulpit stated that there were to be 7 panels instead of 5, such as in his pulpit of the Pisa Baptistery, and it is also stated that Pisano should use the Senese Carrara marble.
The narrative panels of the hexagonal pulpit of the Pisa Baptistery include 5 scenes carved in the Carrara marble and represent episodes from the life of Christ: the Nativity, the Annunciation, the Adoration of the Magi, the Presentation in the Temple, the Crucifixion, and the Last Judgment. All these scenes except the last to reflect Nicola's knowledge and study of ancient sarcophagi.
The Nativity panel from the pulpit of the Baptistery of Pisa for the Saint Nicola based his reclined figure of many of the style of ancient Etruscan tomb sculpture as seen in the Etruscan terracotta sarcophagus of Large Asianti from the 3rd century CE. Other narrative panels from the pulpit of Baptistery of Pisa, the panel of the Presentation in the Temple, the Crucifixion panel, depicts more classically inspired figures. Here the figure of the grieving Virgin Mary represented falling into the arms of the other woman. The left corner of the panel adds something totally new to the iconography of this scene, something more human than divine. A definite departure from Gothic depictions is Nicola's composition of the Last Judgment panel. This scene depicts Christ with the good sauce on the side and the bad on the other, but in a closer look, these two sides include each one disproportionate amount of space. Here the good receive a greater portion of the scene, a picture that typical in Last Judgment imagery.
The octagonal baptismal font located at the center of the Baptistery of Pisa was carved and inlaid in 1246 by the Gothic sculptor Guido Bigarelli da Como. In the center of front stands a 20th century statue of Saint John the Baptist, to whom the baptistery is dedicated. The sculpted virtue figures standing on top of the Corinthian-style capitals were influenced by ancient form. It is evident that this figure was classically inspired and reflect a novel use of nude human body. The panel relief are framed by red marble and separate from one another by bundles of colonnades. Resting on top of the outer ring of column and rounded arches with carved tri-loop patterns, images of prophets were carved in the adjacent spondules. The sculptures are represented in the same manner of those of the Ark of Constantine in Rome. Figures standing on top column and a mentioned ark was at top attic level with sculpted scenes in panels.
At the base of 3 of the columns of the pulpit of the Baptistery of Pisa are sculpted lions looking inward at the base of the middle column, on which sculpted figures are shown in crouching positions. These figures have been interpreted in different ways by scholars. One interpretation purposes that they represent pagan forces, while at the base of 3 of the outer columns of the circling lions appear to ravage their prey. When the pulpit of the baptistery of Pisa was finished, it was received with great enthusiasm. Let us imagine Nicholas' entourage, with his disciples and several apprentices, settling in Siena to execute a pulpit of great proportions, even more complex than that of the baptistery of Pisa, since it was projected with an octagonal floor plan instead of hexagonal, although it was also supported in small columns.